Have you ever wondered where Halloween came from? Who it belongs to? How it came to be as it is now? Does it stretch back to the ancient harvest festivals of the Irish and Samhain, legends of burning wicker men of the Druids, or the early Christian church? Is it a solemn evening to contemplate the passing of loved ones, a night of revelry and mischief, a terrifying time where the souls of the damned dance with devils, or yet another over-commercialized holiday just to sell more candy? What if it's all of them and none of them? Welcome to the Secular Scriptures. I'm Gail, and today we're going to take a look at the ancient and not so ancient origins of Halloween. All Saints' Day and the associated All Souls' Day are November 1st and 2nd. This is where October 31st, as All Hallows' Eve, comes from. Hallow being Old English, to make holy, and een being a shortening of the word evening, giving us holy evening. This hardly sounds like the territory of spooks and haunts and wheezy asthmatics, but both are about dead people. All Saints' Day is obviously a celebration of the saints in the Catholic Church, though Anglican, Methodist, Lutheran, and Nazarene churches also celebrate it. It is placed after Pentecost in the Eastern Orthodox Church. Really? That's not a zombie scratching at my basement door, that's my cat. All Souls' Day is widely celebrated by many denominations, Methodist, Lutheran, Anglican, and Eastern Orthodox, but it is primarily Catholic. And it is a day to pray for the souls of those in purgatory and to remember the loved ones who have died during the year. All Souls' Day is closely tied to the cultural fusion celebration in Mexico of the Day of the Dead, celebrated on the same days. All Saints and All Souls' Day were established in England and France by the 700s around Charlemagne's reign. Other dates for the holy days varied, either April or May, or in one case, November. Over time, countries across the continent of Europe adopted the November dates. The tradition of trick-or-treating goes back to holy day almsgiving called souling, with soul cakes and coins given in exchange for a prayer for the giver's departed loved ones. Soul cakes date back to the early medieval period in the 700s, around the same time that Halloween was established, and are part of the tradition of giving bread as alms to the poor, which is both widespread and ancient. Early Halloween traditions in England also had an element of mischief and revelry, where people would pretend to not know their neighbors, blacken their faces, or wear actual costumes as they went from door to door, begging sweet cakes and alcohol. In the early 18th century, Mischief Night became associated with Halloween. Previously, it had been tied to May Day. Mischief Night variously occurs the night before Halloween, after trick-or-treating is over, or sometime in the week after the holiday. It's a tradition among teens in certain areas that involves minor vandalism, artistic littering, and making a lot of noise. On some streets, no carved or adorned squash is safe. Mischief Night notoriously became Devil's Night in Detroit in the 70s and 80s, and in response, the city started a tradition of Angel's Night, a community watch program that has been highly effective at reducing crime overall. But where did all the demons, devils, witches, werewolves, zombies, ghosts, ghouls, goblins come into this? When the church split, last week, in 1515, the Roman Catholics continued with their long-standing tradition, and so did the Protestants. Except the Protestant ministers didn't necessarily like this, so they started to demote and demonize the holidays. First, they dropped All Saints' Day, obviously. Then they diminished All Souls' Day. As noted before, some Protestant denominations do still practice both. Halloween was particularly tricky to get rid of, though, because everybody loves a good feast and drinking holiday, especially when it involves tasty soul cakes, alcohol, and bonfires. So these Halloween-hating Protestants claimed it was a pagan druid practice of Samhain, and they made up stories about burning wicker men and human sacrifices, witches offering their bastard babies to Beelzebub. The scarier they made it, the more people loved it. Now, Samhain was a harvest holiday, a time to honor the dead. It was the Celtic New Year. Bonfires were lit and all home hearths put out. Families would gather together and feast, setting places for their recently departed, and then took part of the New Year's fire to relight their hearths at home. But no human sacrifices were ever recorded. Just a bunch of English overlords bitching that the Irishmen wouldn't work on that day. Womp, womp. We do get the tradition of jack-o'-lanterns from the Irish. They would carve scary faces into hollowed-out turnips and light a candle inside to ward off evil spirits. As the tradition came to the New World, pumpkins offered a glorious orange substitute for the smaller turnips. Now, where Halloween really gets rolling is the 1800s and 1900s, with the rise of the evangelical church. While this Catholic-Protestant conflict was at a fever pitch, though the actual burning had stopped, thankfully, while All Hallows' Eve is a minor feast for the Catholics, Protestants had made such a big deal of all these devils, demons, and witches. And donuts are delicious. And my, that cider looks good. So it became a time of spooky ghost stories, stolen from their traditional time at Christmas. And the Victorians couldn't possibly miss an excuse for a good costume party. This all bonks headlong into the spiritualist movement of the late 1800s and early 1900s. And by the time World War II had ended, we have our modern practice of costumed kids bopping from door to door, begging for sugary treats or festooning trees with the finest toilet paper streamers in celebrations of ghosts, ghoulies, and spooks that the Protestant preachers couldn't resist railing about for hundreds of years. In response to these apoplectic fits of ye olde satanic panic era, many pagan communities LOL'd and gleefully adopted the rejected spooky time for funsies. Many of them having also been rejected from those churches during said satanic panic. To be honest, I'm not sure how serious this has been taken. There are plenty of other practices already associated with the spooky stuff this time of year. And the correlation between Samhain and Halloween may or may not exist in various practices. I didn't hear the word Samhain until well after I'd left, and it was definitely not part of my tradition. Also, no human sacrifices, just in case you were wondering, though the candy is often sacrificed on the altar of the small god known as Mom Nom. The battle against All Hallows' Eve continues in the evangelical tradition, often ironically as a harvest festival, gathering around a bonfire, being thankful for the fruit of one's labor, enjoying food and drink together, and remembering past loved ones. Today, almost regardless of one's religious affiliation, we have one night of the year where children can knock on their neighbors' doors and be welcomed with a smile, treats, and compliments. Thank yous ring out, and people show how much we love our communities with a small side dish of werewolf and zombies, of course. As a former goth girl and an autumn, Halloween holds a special place in my heart. I've wandered around the neighborhood over the years with my own child and marveled at how creative our little town is. From hay rides to haunted houses, harvest celebrations to trunk-or-treat gatherings, and community-sponsored teen parties, it all makes my heart glad. Halloween comes directly from All Hallows' Eve, All Souls' Day, and All Saints' Day. It's a tradition of giving alms to the poor, and the poor praying for your eternal soul in return. It also comes from Samhain, directly or grafted on by Protestant propaganda, an Irish harvest festival honoring the dead and hope for bounty in the coming year. In pagan circles, it's a time to be close to the spiritual realm and a celebration of family past and present. And if you're a regular American kid, it's one night a year where you can be whatever you want, and you get candy for doing it. No matter what you believe or don't, I think that's all pretty cool. Happy Halloween, everybody.